Hey guys, what's up? This is Stock Retail coming back to you. Boy, it feels good to get to say that again. I know it's been quite a while since I've made any videos, and I've missed kind of saying that to you. Kind of funny for me. My kids, they tease me about that. Actually, they checked out a couple of the videos, and they always tease me like, "Hey, what's up? This is Stock Retail." You know how kids can do. But for me, it's just something I get to say with a smile on my face because as I'm talking to you guys, it means we're back together in spirit. Of course, I never went away. I mean, I'm all over Twitter. I've told you guys that before. Sometimes I just get too busy to make videos. It's rough. This is the fourth quarter for me at work, and some people are leaning on me to help drive more revenue for the company, which means I'm a little more busy this quarter. And then we've had some family stuff too, but I am not going anywhere. There's a reason I'm always posting, like, Ape's not leaving, and I'm definitely Ape's not leaving. So don't worry about me in seasons where I don't make as many videos. Find me on Twitter. I know some of you don't prefer to be there. That's fine. So then you'll just have to wait sometimes. But here I am, and boy, there's a lot to talk about. I have been kind of sitting on some information for a while, just digesting it. Some of it I understand and will explain to you. Some of it's a little more speculative, and I'll try to kind of highlight that too. Um, but gosh, hot off the presses. I mean, let's just jump right in to actually, before I jump right in, I'm going to go through a lot of our connection to crypto, everything that's been happening. We've all been following Sam's trial, the FTX trial, a lot of things going on, swirling more than just with FTX around crypto. I'm going to remind you of the story. If you followed me on Twitter for 2.5, 3 years, you know most of the story already, but some of you found me here on YouTube, and so perhaps haven't heard pieces of this. And then I want to just continue to tie it all together for us because I do believe it means we're into kind of a new season here. And that's why I've said Kingdom Thinking. You probably saw the new trailer came out for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Pretty excited about that one. So, hot off the presses, that's where I was going to jump in. Sam has been found guilty. I believe the jury turned in their verdict. Feels pretty fast to me. I don't know how fast these cases usually go. Feels just. He was found guilty. So check that out. You can see the news on that. That's all over the place tonight. But I want to draw, the connection to everything we've dealt with. Wrong way. Sorry, guys. There we go. So a while back, gosh, when was this? I don't recall. But a while back, we saw that Sam had, during the court case, Sam had kind of confessed that, or it came out anyway, that they had allowed Alameda to have a negative balance that, surprise, surprise, happened to equal almost exactly the amount that Citadel has on their, sold, not yet purchased. So I'm even just going to walk you through a timeline, and I thought, what the heck, I'll just kind of basically share it from my tweet. What happened was also at that same time, the FBI had announced that they had formed this new, like, stock fraud manipulation kind of group down in Los Angeles. So I thought, all right, let's give them some of the breadcrumbs. So first of all, you can see that I was just reminding them, and now I'm telling you, hey, if you don't know, the first tokens were actually made on January 27th. So if you can go back and you can find, and I found the transaction log once even, or I found a transaction log. I don't know if I should say the transaction log, but I found transactions for the GME and AMC tokens, the GameStop and AMC tokens, going back, and the actual start date was January 27th, 2021. So think about the day that the buy button was removed, basically the next day. So pretty interesting to note that tokens were created for AMC and GameStop the day before the buy button removal and all of the battle we've been in since then, right? So that's a pretty big red flag in terms of timing. That connects, so you can see here I'm calling out, it's not just FTX, guys, it was Binance. Binance were the ones who made the tokens first. So if you're a crypto bro, I kind of lovingly call it that, or I don't know, sis or whatever. Anyway, if you're a crypto person and you think Gary Gensler's just sort of unnecessarily been going after crypto, you need to know parts of this story. And this is one of them. So Binance actually had created the tokens. They partnered with a German company called CM Equity AG. I'm just kind of going through these hashtags for you. You know that FTX now, you followed their involvement. Bittrex. So Bittrex just got, I believe they just got charged, or there's rumblings that they're getting charged. I have to go back and check. If you recall, Matt Kors was hardcore pushing FTX on the apes. I've talked about the link between Citadel, the 65 billion. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. Reminder, it wasn't just Robinhood that removed the buy button. It was also Interactive Brokers. We've seen Virtu talk a lot about infinite liquidity. We're going to talk today about tokens and infinite liquidity. So all of these things kind of swirl around each other. Now, later in the same year, recall that Mark Cohodes, who is a known short seller, and by the way, you can find all kinds of court cases and allegations and SEC documents on him. Just a, I'm gonna actually say, I don't call people names, but actually, so I won't call him a name, but I will just say I believe he's a terrible person, through and through, just a terrible human. And I saw that right away, stood up to him, but he came and tried to aggressively push tokens on us. First tried with GameStop, tried a lot harder with AMC, partnered up and buddied up with Terra, Spence, naming kind of a couple of other accounts here. Froggy Styles is that other one. And, they were pushing very hard for AMC to tokenize our stock, to do an STO, securitized token offerings. And at the time, they really tried to sideline me because I stood up very vocally against this. I posted the DD. I'm going to show you where you can go get that. So you can find that I wrote about this. It's interesting, the timing, because it was almost exactly 2 years ago. I wrote a pretty long Reddit piece on this, which, by the way, yes, you can find me all over Reddit as well. And that was 2 years ago, I remember, because it was basically Thanksgiving, and I was hustling to get that DD done so I could go enjoy Thanksgiving with my family. It's been a long journey, guys, and sometimes, some of us have had to put in some work at inopportune times, but that's because there's some bad guys who don't pick the right timing for us. That definitely connects Gasparino, other YouTubers. There's actually one YouTuber I'm going to go ahead and not name in this video, but you might be surprised the path that Cohodes took to the apes. Goes through YouTuber, goes through some producers, and it goes through some of the influencers like Terra. So, and that's when, a while back, I also made a video, one of my earlier videos I called it on tigers and frogs. And so you can go see that, and I discuss how influencers have been used against you. So it keeps going, the timeline. So just let's pull up for a sec. Remember, tokens were created January 27th. Around June, before, actually, let me back up here. Around June, Binance kind of backed out, and that's when FTX kind of took over the tokens and started publishing bum loads of them. Now, I know there's, we throw around this 8 quadrillion number. There's a lot of questions and debate on what the 8 quadrillion is and if that's even real. But the bottom line is we know that FTX created a ton of tokens, as did Binance, Bittrex, etc. So now you can see over on the right, I'm kind of telling the FBI, hey, the icing on the cake. So apes noted for a very long time the 65 billion sold, not yet purchased on Citadel's books, right? And now it comes to light. So you can see I was talking about that FTX had admitted in court it was allowing Alameda to carry a negative balance of up to 65 billion. I've been around AMC long enough to just start to believe there just aren't coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. Sometimes it's just code. These guys are talking in code out there. That's definitely happening. And sometimes it's because things are actually literally connected. Now, remember, you've also by now seen that Brett Harrison connects these dots as well. He went from Citadel to FTX, right? And he was like the CEO of FTX or whatever, and has been on a blocking spree of AMC apes lately. So there's a lot of dots connecting here, right? You've got Dougie talking about infinite liquidity. You've got a massive liquidity crisis that bubbled up in January of 2021. And exactly at that moment, tokens were created. Just think of like a pressure cooker. And if you open the release valve, you release some steam, right? That's what I mean by infinite liquidity. They were releasing steam from the squeeze, in my opinion, and using tokens, and we'll talk about ETFs to do it. So those are just some of the connections there. Obviously here I'm talking to the FBI about online bullying, short and distort. I've talked to you guys here on this channel before about high frequency trading and a lot of other things. So interesting also that I guess I mentioned Coinbase. So you're seeing more and more on Coinbase. You got to look at major players in the reverse repo. That's been another sort of liquidity pool. You're watching the reverse repo get smaller and smaller, so that's drying up the money supply. Predatory bonds, you've seen Adam refer to bonds That's another thing out there for AMC. So I'm just kind of pointing you in some directions. Cross asset investments. I'm not going deep on any of that today. I want to really kind of focus on the tokens, but although all of this in my mind kind of connects. Okay. Speaking of 2 years ago, so what really just happened, if you don't know, maybe a primer for some of you were around and will remember it. That is when Terra just full on brought in cohodes and basically was his space call host, presented him effectively to the apes. And I went on record, called her out by name, just decided enough of this, and I posted the DD. So I'm showing you where that DD is. I'm realizing if you're on Twitter, I've been posting the wrong one because I know I had reposted it into another sub that was just basically some friends of mine had kind of run that sub. Anyway, this is the one that shows, the receipts that it was posted 2 years ago. So you can go find that on the AMC stocks sub. I just wasn't much of a Reddit ape, so I didn't have enough karma to post in the bigger AMC sub. That's why it's in this one. But you can go find that long DD about tokens. I think a lot of you have probably seen that by now because I've been reposting that a few times. Link at the bottom there if you want to actually just kind of, it seems to me like you wouldn't want to write out that link. Just, you can go Google liquidity margins and MOAS, and I'm sure you can find me. And I'm stock retail on there too. You can kind of see that at the top, stock_retail. All right. But the point is, we knew 2 years ago, and we've seen a lot of DD on that since. There's some great apes who've done some pretty deep work on that. I want to pull us over to, what is going on. So we're seeing a lot of our old DD that actually is coming to fruition. It's actually happening the way that we said it would. So all this work on tokens is coming true, and that's why I'm pointing you to receipts from even 2 years ago, so that you know that there were definitely apes who were not surprised by everything going on. We saw it, we caught it, we knew, the powers that be didn't do anything about it until it basically blew up in their face. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too. You can see my YouTube I referenced already on tigers and frogs. That, by the way, is going to connect you back to the creation of Bitcoin and the VW squeeze. So if that doesn't perk your interest, I don't know what will. I give you a little more detail about the timeline of our tokens so you can see it more clearly, and the timeline of Bitcoin, the timeline of the VW squeeze, and some other things. So check that out. And there's a reason I'm talking about tigers and frogs, and if you go check that out, you'll see. But a lot of that's been coming true. And then there was a YouTube I've referenced quite a few times just so that you understand that Adam saw a lot of this coming, and he set AMC up in a very strong place. That one's called The Pieces. It's got like a picture of a chess piece on the front of it. All the things going on with banks, with crypto, with precious metals, with tokens, I believe Adam has set us up for success. So just the point is, the DD has been coming true. And I've told you for a long time, watch for people with credibility. If you share something 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, etc. in advance, and then it actually happens, that means that's someone who did their homework and knows what they're talking about and isn't just giving you clickbait. All right, so a few things I want to tie together here as well. I'm not going to go deep on this for two reasons. One, I barely understand it myself. This is an area I'm still learning, but I'm sharing with you some things you're going to see out there. So you start to see different people posting a little differently, and you start to catch some coding and some symbolism out there. There are effectively multiple, I want to call it like multiple AI, as almost those are people, right? But there are several that you're going to see talked about out there. Some perhaps may end up working in our favor. Some perhaps are working against us. You've heard of Aladdin before. That one's pretty clear. Most of you, at least I'm assuming, have heard of Aladdin and basically how that is used to drive the stock market. But check into, you're seeing a lot of symbolism about Oz, and you're starting to see some symbolism about Alice and some discussions about Through the Mirror and stuff like that. Suffice it to say that I believe things are coming that make me feel bullish, but that is very speculative here. So I'm not going to give you a trust me, bro. I don't do that on this channel, but at least I'm pointing you in a direction or showing you some breadcrumbs to start to pay attention to see a little bit more out there of what's going on. So here's just an example, right? You've probably seen by now some of the stuff out on the US debt clock, and there definitely has been a reference to the Wizard of Oz there. You're going to see it lots of other places too. So that's just one example of many that you could just go find out there now, and you're going to start to kind of notice it. It's like when you're driving around and maybe you buy a new car and you didn't know very many people had your type of car, but suddenly you buy it and now you see it everywhere. So I'm just showing you, you're going to see these symbols everywhere now. And you're going to start to understand there's a lot going on that's really, really big. I tell my wife all the time, it's almost impossible for me to explain how big this is of everything, what's going on around us. More symbolism you're going to see. So you can see like in Loki, love that show. One of my favorites. You've got this, I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but Ouroboros. That is, I don't want to spoil anything on Loki, so I won't say more about that. But there's symbolism in that. You can see the top right, that's the actual like Ouroboros. There's some symbolism that kind of connects that as well. And I'm not going to say a lot more about that, but that symbolism is out there. Look for these things, start to try to understand them a little bit. Perhaps I'll speak in more detail in future videos. More symbolism, right? You're seeing the number 13 everywhere. Now, some of that's just for fun, right? So Taylor, her favorite number's 13. We had Adam talked about his 12th out of 13 tweets or something like that, or 12 of his last 13, or I forget what. The price of the tickets for Halloween were 1313. There's just a lot of things out there. Interesting fun fact I just wanted to share that I just learned recently. I've been just kind of learning a bit more about. So if you don't know, November is American Indian Heritage Month. That's the kind of official naming of it. And one of the things that I learned about, whether you want to, say Native Americans, or if it's maybe perhaps more polite to say indigenous peoples of America, many believed that the turtle was kind of a sacred or symbolic creature. And something I learned is like all turtles have 13, like shell pieces on their back. And that the Native Americans believed basically the moon had 13 cycles in the year. And, just kind of interesting to learn, especially in light of all that we think about moon and all of that. So just a fun fact for you. And I'm just pointing you to watch for that number 13 as well. All right, enough about some of all that kind of wonky stuff. But let's kind of come back to the court case a little bit, and to FTX and to crypto. And now let's make some more connections. Let's draw some more dots here. So you saw recently that Sam was asked specifically about market manipulation. If you don't know, he came from Jane Street. Early on in my time in AMC, I was told that Jane Street was one of the worst manipulators of markets and a very, very problematic group. Well, here he is in court saying the quiet part out loud. So someone asked him what market manipulation means. He said at Jane Street, they just called that a bad trade. In other words, he really was saying that's just a kind of a day at the office, and you manipulate things when you had a bad trade and you want to make it go your way. These guys basically don't lose, right? That's kind of problematic. That's admitting that in the stock market, they make sure they don't lose, and that's called market manipulation. But now connect the dot. Sam comes from Jane Street. Brett Harrison comes from Citadel. They create tokens. Our tokens were created the day before the buy button removal. He's openly saying he was engaged in market manipulation and cut his teeth at Jane Street. Right? Are you seeing the dots connecting there? I hope you are. A lot more going to be going on crypto. So we're going to keep talking through that a little bit here, just pointing you in a few directions, a little bit more of a breadcrumb video. And I'm sorry I'm not explaining some of these things in more detail, but keep watching Binance as well. Now, I had called out Binance 2 years ago in that DD. So this is not new to me. This is not surprising. Some folks try to say, oh, this is just the SEC fighting against, decentralization, but baloney. I call baloney. These guys are criminal frauds. And there's a reason that there are DOJ criminal charges, forthcoming on these guys. So keep track of that. Watch out. Just watch all things crypto. And I'm going to try to tie that back into AMC a little bit more before we're done here. Another thing I want you to be watching for. So this is something I'm just still learning myself. I cannot at all pretend to be an expert on it. I've just done a little bit of reading. I'm showing you one little screenshot. You can find a lot more detail out there. You want to research Bitcoin halving. That is coming soon. And kind of research what Satoshi Nakamoto, I worked in Japan for a while, so I want to call him Nakamoto-san, but what he, kind of how he created Bitcoin and what the mechanics of it are and how it's halving every so often. what that means to crypto miners, what that means to the value of Bitcoin, and some things that might signal. Perhaps I can do a follow-up video on that when I do a little more DD, so I can, because here's one thing: when you can't explain something in simple terms, it means you don't know it well enough yet. And if I was to explain this to you right now, it's going to be real complicated and real wonky. So I want to get to the point where I can say it in plain English to you guys, which means I have to do more DD myself. But I will tell you, it's, to me, sometimes you understand things in the back of your brain or in your gut before you can put them in your mouth. And this is very clearly tied to a lot that's going on with AMC right now, and a lot about what's going to be going on with AMC. I believe that. So, Bitcoin halving, research that. More signs everywhere. So, you've got various accounts kind of noticing some things and basically talking about, this is just an account that I think stays on top of precious metals. I mean, obviously, the gold telegraph. But I think they have some interesting things to share from time to time. I like what they have to say, and they are kind of viewing it as there's a lot of folks, seeing that perhaps the music is stopping. I'm not totally sure because, I don't want to spoil a couple things I'm about to show you, but there are potentially some, I don't know, I'll call it exit doors. In some cases for good guys, in some cases for bad guys. All of it makes me very bullish. That's the good news. The only question is, are we going to go through a market crash, through this process, or are they kind of going to, I don't know, right the ship? But in fact, we're kind of turning around to start talking about that a little bit. So first of all, definitely look up DD on ETFs and how those are used to naked short. That has been a major, major issue, and effectively for a while given them a lot of ability to control the price of AMC. I believe that as well. There's plenty of DD on that. I'm not going deep here. Each of these topics are almost a whole video by themselves. That is the level it takes to understand these things. But there are apes who have talked about some of this. There's DD out there. So generally look up how ETFs are used to naked short. I've shown you guys before sometimes. There's academic articles as well. There was an academic article I did read on this once, although that's been like 2 years ago as well, maybe even 2.5 years. So I'd have to brush that up. But here's the point. You've also seen that now Grayscale and Blackrock and others have been working on creating crypto ETFs. That's actually kind of, I'm calling this a new era, a birth of a new era. I do believe actually that good things are coming for us, all related to all the tokens, naked shorting, and these guys needing a way out. Did you see where BlackRock said they believe Bitcoin effectively is worth, I think, like $10 trillion? An insane number. And if you start doing some math on that, boy, that's a big climb. And so, once you start thinking about what that might mean and why they might be saying that and how that connects, I honestly believe, let's just say it makes me pretty bullish for AMC. And I know that's a bit of a trust me, bro. I'm sorry, and so I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just telling you that's my point of view. And maybe in future videos we can go deeper and explain it more. Another dot to connect here. So remember that, I just talked about the crypto ETFs. Think back to timing. So tokens were created right before the buy button issue. What is being created right now, and what was the timing of it starting to be created? Well, there's a hurry up offense. If you've been watching news out of the SEC, you can tell this is a hurry up offense to get these ETFs in place. Why the hurry up? Look at the top tweet, or really both of these. There was an admission by BlackRock that they effectively started this work, had the information that, if you caught, like, people sort of caught that there was like a ticker or a file at the DTCC, and that kind of made a whole splash a week or two ago that kind of almost created a pump and dump for Bitcoin. It went way up. Then the SEC came out and said, well, hold your horses. We haven't approved anything just yet. And then Bitcoin dropped. And then there was progress on the ETF, and then Bitcoin went back up again. Boy, there might be a whole lot of purchasing of Bitcoin once these ETFs come into place. And so you get into some supply-demand issues with Bitcoin and the mining of it and the halving, and all of this stuff is going to matter, and we're all going to need to do a lot of DD on it and keep learning here. But this is not a crypto video. This is an AMC video. So I'm going to show you why that kind of ties for me. Notice that it was August. They got sort of on the offense. They got in a hurry in August. Well, what else happened in August? Judge Zern approved the conversion of ape, and ape went away. File that away in your head. We're going to kind of wrap that up in this video here in a minute. But remember that Adam said ape was the pounce. He said ape was the checkmate. What happened as soon as ape started going away? These guys started to scramble for the crypto ETFs. I'm going to give you some what ifs here in a minute, but just at the very least, even if you think I'm crazy, what you can't deny is the timing. The moment that ape, the writing was on the wall and Judge Zern approved that ape was going to be converted and go away, these guys sped up the process for a crypto ETF. That timing happened. And remember that they were using delay techniques. They were trying to stall and create more time for themselves. I believe it was related to this, and that's why they're hurrying a little more now. So we talked about 65 billion. I guess we kind of already covered this, so I'm just showing the tweet that I had sort of built that off of. And then remember Brett Harrison's connection. So I suppose here's a repeat, so we'll go past this slide quickly. But just remember 65 billion on the Citadel side. Brett Harrison moves from Citadel to FTX. FTX gives Alameda the ability to run a 65 billion negative balance. Here, I think this is more of a coincidence, so I don't mean to be too tinfoily, but I want to just keep pointing you to these numbers just keep being very similar. So, and at the very least, there is a real issue here that's not tinfoil. So if you recall, a while back, the Citadel basically got, says CitSec here, so that's short for Citadel Securities. They effectively were able to start trading in U.S. Treasuries and federal assets. And you can see, so here was a tweet. Basically, the U.S. was going to sell 68 billion in 6-month bills here just a couple days ago to settle effectively now. And at the same time, the news was coming out where the SEC was accusing Citadel of basically playing with basis points in trades and effectively gaming the system. And so then Kenny Boy came out and said, I don't know what they're talking about, deny, deny, deny. So again, all of these numbers kind of swirling around each other, continue to be pretty close to each other. To me, that's either code or, heck, sometimes, conspiracies don't have to be wrong, and it doesn't mean you're crazy. People commit conspiracy to defraud. I mean, that's what most of this has been against AMC, right? Conspiracy is just people working against you and working together with each other. That happens in the world. All right, so speaking of numbers that match, if you didn't see, and that's why I had tweeted a while back when I said congratulations you too, and I'm not gonna lie, I was even speaking in code on that one, but I'll keep that one to myself. It was tongue-in-cheek and I was just having some fun. But here are the two tweets at the bottom that I was kind of screenshotting there. If you saw, so FTX's bankruptcy filing, they ended up saying 1.7 trillion, which is absolutely bonkers insane and caught a lot of eyes, and it should have caught our eyes. It's just ridiculous. The same day, I think it was, we saw that the US government, so now I'm on the far right, had basically posted a what? $1.7 trillion deficit. FTX posts a $1.7 trillion bankruptcy at the same time we find out the US ran a $1.7 trillion deficit. That's some kind of signaling or code or something. You cannot convince me that that one was a coincidence. That's where my head's at on that one. All of this, just do you see how deep all of this runs with tokens, with AMC, with crypto, etc.? Yeah, it goes deep. Anyway, at the same time, we were talking about all of the issues with crypto and people basically putting wild speculative numbers on it. Remember how many times Fidelity was going out? I kept seeing you guys posting, I don't know, 2-3 weeks in a row, just different outages Fidelity was having. And then at the same time, they come out and say Bitcoin is, going to be worth a whole lot more than it is. So they're putting their names in the hat for everything going on as well, too. Shifting direction a little bit, and then I promise we're going to come back and tie together some of this crypto and ape and AMC conversation. And keep hearing that it makes me very bullish. But unfortunately, that's a bit of a trust me bro today, and you know that I won't ask you to. All right, so something we did see. Remember also way back in the day the signaling we got about bonds. from Adam. I've done a whole video where I talked about callable bonds as well. I've also cautioned you guys on investing in bonds. I felt like I saw some different influencers trying to tell you guys to get into bonds. That always raises the hairs on the back of my neck when a whole bunch of big accounts all at once kind of seem like they're reading from a script. Look, if people want to give you education and they're all on the same topic together, that's cool. That's actually very cool. We should be teaching each other. So I'm not naming names on that one because I want to be careful, but I'm just saying I did notice it. That's kind of two different issues, frankly. And so the issues with the callable bonds with AMC, that's something I'm excited about. That means they can pay off some debt early. Adam pointed us to that. We also know a little bit about predatory bonds and the debt covenants and dividends and all of that, right? So that's its own video. But what I want you to just see is this typo, supposedly on the left. Look at this word AMNI in the second line. Now, it's a typo of one form or another, and that's why at the top I'm saying, well, which is the typo? Was that word supposed to be any, or was that word supposed to be Amy? Now, if you think about that, if it's Amy, we know that is AMC. And so perhaps, look at how he's saying, you look at the bonds first before you do anything, basically just warning about bonds, right? And we know AMC's got callable bonds. And then on the right, bonds trading like small caps. Look, we all know that Jim is a mouthpiece for hedge funds. He is. So you got to try to be aware of, well, what's he a mouthpiece for? By the way, when I only had 300 followers, maybe less, early days of 2021, he had already blocked me. No idea why to this day. I never talked to him. I never talked about him. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm a pretty respectful guy. I don't really earn very many blocks. So he's one who had pre-blocked me, so that ought to also tell you something. I find that both odd and telling. So that's out there. Hey, something interesting you might be aware of, and I'm kind of saying this half jokingly, but that time we MOASed, but I'm not sure many of you knew that we did. Did you know that when FTX went bankrupt at the moment, so basically go back a year from today, this was about that time last year. Look at this Wall Street Bet tokenized futures. There's a specific token that was these Wall Street WSB tokenized futures. It went up to $119,000. And you can just see all those green bars. It went, and you can see what was making that up. It's basically a basket of effectively stocks. That index contained, so you can see some Doge, some GameStop, some AMC, but you can see quite a bit more, especially if you go back to what the price was of AMC at that time. Basically more AMC than most anything else in there. You can see silver, Nokia, GameStop. So it was a heck of a run the moment FTX went down. So just one more dot for you to connect. FTX goes bankrupt. Remember, our cost to borrow ran to like 1,000 at that time. And this Wall Street Bet futures that is a basket of what effectively meme stocks ran to $119,000. Wild stuff. Okay, wrong way. Oh, and so I wanted to kind of give you a concept. This is a physical concept, in the world of physics and chemistry, that energy isn't destroyed, but it can be stored. And so I want you to think about that in terms of value. Something happened with the value of our stocks in those tokenized futures that made them run to $120,000. In no way am I, on this channel, I will never say prices. I will never say dates. I just won't. Even if I believe in a price or a date, I'm not going to say it. That's just not my game. That's not what I do. But this happened. This is a fact. I don't know fully what that means to us, but I will say I believe on some level there was some value stored here that some players were willing to pay. And that might be like stored energy or stored value. Someday that's going to be released. I don't know when, and I don't know in what way. Something else you might want to know just for your own DD, maybe go do some charting. This was a line I had drawn all the way back in 2021. I had just noted, I'll just show you here, in January, crypto had dipped right before AMC ripped, and the same in June. So when it had hit this line, we had ripped. And unfortunately, what had happened is last year about this time, I thought, oh man, we're going to run again. And that just didn't happen. But here we are again. Now this chart is now old. You can see this is when we crypto bounced to 34,000. That was on that sort of pump and dump and all the news that kind of was jerking it everywhere. I think now we're more a little above 35,000. But just interesting to note, we're kind of back in the zone of the last two times that AMC ripped. I think there's some kind of, I suppose twice isn't fully a pattern yet, but it happened twice that we were at that level when AMC ripped. So something else I'm watching. A lot of other interesting things going on. This also tied to FTX's bankruptcy. I found it interesting that there was a firm called Cherokee Acquisition that was kind of connected. I'm just going to kind of leave that there. Some of you might see some things there and some of you won't. That's okay. But just lots of interesting things. I would just continue to follow all that is swirling around crypto. You're hearing me say over and over. Here's another one. As soon as that spot ETF was kind of announced, you started seeing a lot of big movements. You probably saw this all over Twitter or Reddit or YouTube or whatever, but lots of crypto wallets are moving some really, really big amounts all over the place. And then I found this odd, and if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen too, it was doubly odd because like an hour before I saw this, my 9-year-old son was talking to me about palindromes. I kid you not. Now, he wasn't talking about numbers at all. He was just had learned about them a bit at school during the day, and he was asking me kind of what was the point of learning about palindromes. So we had a little bit of discussion about understanding language and how that can make you a better communicator. You know, I did one of those parent things, just trying to do the hard sell on education. But anyway, and then an hour later, I saw this, and I'm like, you can see this is a, I don't know how to pronounce it, palindromic number, palindromic, whatever. The number itself is a palindrome. And I'm just looking at that and going, look at all those threes, look at the 13s. Again, is that a coincidence? Hard to believe it is. That's a really odd number. Who knows? Maybe it is, but sometimes there's signs out there. Okay, so let's wrap up crypto and ape. What if you needed a lot of AMC, but you didn't want to be the one who squeezed it? And what if there was a magical liquidity fairy who could create wrapped tokens? Keep that word in your mind, wrapped. You're going to learn about that in coming days. Wrapped tokens that basically connected an asset to AMC to effectively kind of let you own AMC. Now, remember the date when the tokens were first created? January 27th, 2021. Remember how hard our cost to borrow ran when FTX went down? Okay. Remember how hard we ran again when the criminal trial started? I'm letting that sink in for you guys. All right, so I'm going to start from the top again. What if you needed AMC but didn't want to actually squeeze AMC? So what if some magical liquidity fairy said you can have as much as you want whenever you want it and effectively connected two assets? Perhaps connecting crypto to AMC to let you naked short. But what if along the way this asset called ape got introduced and got tied in? And then what if that asset, poof, disappeared? But now you needed to back your AMC again, and the tokens won't work any longer. The punchline of that is somewhat squeezy if you want to believe it. Not somewhat, I'll actually come out and say it. The punchline of that is incredibly squeezy if you want to believe it. But I'm giving you a lot of speculation, and I'm committed to, on this channel, not saying trust me, bro. I'm just telling you, these are things that I have started to dwell on and think about and look at. And in some cases, other people who have done DD before me have shared some things, and I'm, synthesizing and translating things that I see. But if you believe Adam, he said ape was the pounce, he said ape was the checkmate, and I'm giving you a what-if scenario on how that played out. So a speculative summary, and you see the word speculative on the screen. I hope you even see in the title of the video, I'm not giving the clickbait. I've told my wife before, I'll make videos as long as I have actually something to say. I'm never going to be a clickbait channel, I just won't do it. But here's a speculative summary. Tokens were the infinite liquidity. The bodies are buried in crypto. They didn't go away. Ape really was the checkmate, and there's a clock running. The wheels are already in motion. That's why you've been seeing all of this going on. Remember also when our latest AMC run roughly started. Crypto bros don't yet get what's going on with this asset that they think is an angel and may have been used by a bunch of devils. And so I'm on high alert right now. I'm watching closely. Now remember, sometimes value can be like energy, and it just needs to be released. Whew, and if it gets released, that's what I'm saying, might be very squeezy. Okay, switching topics. We're almost done. Just 2 more slides after this one. I want to keep reminding you guys about how people infiltrate us and how people try to manage your feelings. So, people, first of all, set false expectations, right? Like, have you seen, and by the way, I want to be really careful here. I'm not talking about your average ape who just gets excited and has a lot of hype. That's awesome. We should have hype. I love this stock. I love movies. I am hyped up for this stock and for the movies, right? That's great. And so sometimes even I'm going to get like numbers wrong or whatever. But it's one thing if, let's say there's like, I don't know, a $200 million movie and someone says they think it'll do 250. That's one thing. It's another thing if someone says they think it's going to do 2.5 billion in the first weekend alone, right? So people say these wild expectations, or they give you all kinds of numbers for this price on Tuesday and that price on Thursday, and buy these options, and we're squeezing on Wednesday. And then it doesn't happen, and what do you feel? You feel let down, you feel disappointed, and they bring you up and they bring you down, and they bring you up and they bring you down. Those are infiltrators. Those are not apes. And then they start spreading fear messages. Hey, this is really bad news. This bad thing's going to happen. Oh, no. Right? Now they're getting you based in fear. They want you in a fear-based mentality. They want you disappointed, and they want you fearful. Negative emotions are a really great way to control a population. Then they sneaky undermine AMC itself, or they undermine Atom. Little things that make them say, I hate saying this, but... You ever had someone who says, like, I don't mean to offend you, but you know they're about to offend you, right? When someone says, I hate saying this, but they don't hate it. They're saying something by design. And then you're also seeing them dismiss, isolate, and downplay, people that I view as real apes. Myself included, by the way. That's been my experience for 3 years. I get sidelined by any real big accounts. They don't want to deal with me. They don't want to promote me. They don't want to talk to me. Or if they do, they want it to be in a very controlled way that I'm just not going to do. Just keep watching. There are people you think are apes who are not apes. That is my point of view. And I've been burned enough the last few years to just be eyes wide open on that. And that's why. In the end, you don't have to care that much. Like, whatever. If you don't want to go infiltrator hunting, more power to you, because that just means you're on a positive path. And I'm proud of you for that. You can just focus on your journey and your path and being positive. That's awesome. Okay, a couple other almost final thoughts, then we'll have our final slide. Don't forget to vote, right? Get the vote out. I'm sorry I haven't done like a proxy materials review. By now, I think probably most of you have already voted, but vote, get that vote out. Vote on the proxy materials, the investor meeting. Earnings. Just a quick reminder, because some of you asked me on Twitter, I did a forecast video, so you can go back and find that. I have not changed my mind because Q3 has been done this whole time. It's been locked and loaded, so I don't need to reforecast that. I had said positive earnings for Q3. I basically said I thought Q3 would be almost identical to Q2. I feel not super duper confident. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that can happen inside of earnings, both on the expense side and on the income side, that I don't have visibility to. So it's one thing to forecast the box office. I've been pretty accurate on that. It's a little harder to forecast earnings. But so that my point of view is I believe we've got positive earnings. I also believe, now I've just called it interesting news, but frankly, I believe we might hear some big things. Like I think we may hear about popcorn door expansion, although we've already seen some of that. We've got the microwave popcorn in AMC doors. I think that's awesome. That actually captures more margin internally, because you're not having to give any of the money to Walmart. Anyway, we might hear more about popcorn. We might hear more about candy. We might hear more about various partnerships, beer, wine. There's any host of things. Debt pay down, bond recalls. And that's kind of the same thing. But anyway, so I'm very excited to hear what Adam has to share next week. I'm very bullish. Let's just see what that looks like. And then, just Q4, what we've got going on. So I said 2 queens on the board. We had Taylor. That's just been nothing short of just an amazing success story. We had a way higher market share than usual. We have distribution money. We have tons of merch sales. We had what effectively is a blockbuster that wasn't even in the quarter in any of our forecasts. And, so an unannounced, or I guess an unexpected blockbuster So that was awesome by Adam and Taylor, and Beyonce is coming. So great things going on. I'm extremely bullish. And so as for me, I say live life joyfully and let's go.